Welcome to another video by Pharaoh's Technology. Today we want to talk about advanced SQL queries. So let's get started. I'm showing this to you in a PowerPoint presentation because it's actually easier and quicker to show all of the things that need to be done. Today we're going to go ahead and talk about wildcards, distinct and distinct row, group by, and then aggregating data with the group by statement, where and having clauses, the as clause, and the top number and the top percent of a data set. So let's talk about wildcards now. Now, wildcards are several things actually. If you want to represent any number or any character and any number of those, you can put a star in there. So a lot of times when I'm looking for a particular substring of a field, I'll put star and then the substring and then star afterwards. That allows it to find anything before, anything afterwards, and it really is quite quick. Now, if I need it to represent any character only, in other words, I'm not looking for numbers, I don't even want to consider numbers, I can use a question mark. Now, a question mark isn't like the star in that it represents only a single character. The next is the pound sign. Acts just like the question mark, but it's going to be looking for numbers. Any one digit in any particular location. For example, if you're looking for a single digit, you might put star, pound, star. And you're looking for a digit in the middle of a string, for example. The next thing is brackets. Brackets allow you to send a group of characters. So you can pass a single character, or you can pass what they call an array of characters, or several characters within those brackets. And here I give you a little example of, you put it in quotes, you put stars on either side, and then you put ABC in the center. Now it's going to look for an A and a B and a C in that string in any order in any place, and give you the result. Now, if you don't want to find ABC, for example, you can exclude ABC as three characters that you'd find in there by just putting the exclamation point, or sometimes it's called the bang character, at the beginning of your string. So here you see the example, quote, stars on either side, brackets, and then exclamation point, ABC, okay? So wildcards are implemented in the SQL code like this. This is our star character star example. I'm looking for an A in the middle of the character string someplace. Okay, so I'm going to use the like command here, and it's going to be like and in quotes on either side, and then star, A, and star. Now, if I do it in the query grid, the design grid, I will put that like star, A star down here. If I don't have to actually put the quotation marks around it, it'll know that I want the quotation marks around it, and it'll automatically put it in once I tab out of that field. Now, the data would then look like this. I'm looking for an A anywhere in my data set. So here it finds it in the second character. Here it finds it in the fifth, so forth on through the list. So it's finding an A anywhere in that string. Okay, let's look at the distinct command. Distinct means I'm looking for the records that have distinct members or of the fields that I've selected. So let's look at this. If I select the field market and the field state, I want a unique list of markets and states together. Now, I'm going to be looking at pivot table feed, PV table feed. And if I look at the data has 9,692 records in it. That's important for analysis here. And it lists everything, and off to the right, there's unique information about things that are in that Midwest region, in the Denver market, and the particular branch number that's showing just in those top 22 records. Now, let's look then at what it would look like if I ran this query. So query 2 says Buffalo, Maryland, Buffalo, New York, Buffalo, Pennsylvania, Buffalo, and West Virginia. These 4 states are in the market for this company, in the Buffalo market, and those states are part of the Buffalo market. California also includes Nevada. The Canada market includes several other provinces. Okay, so we move on. In the property sheet, we're going to look in the property sheet, and what we want to do is look at query properties, meaning that when you're in the query design grid, you're going to click on the white space up where the tables show. And if we look at unique values here and we set that to yes, it will set up your query with the distinct command in here. Okay. Now, if we want distinct row, the difference between distinct and distinct row becomes very apparent the minute you run it. If I want to run this same exact query, except I'm going to have distinct row in it, my data, it'll have 9,692 without the query, but if I run query 2, all of a sudden I've still got 9,692 records. Even though the 2 fields that I selected, market and state, were in the distinct command would have given me 53 records. If the distinct command gives me 53, distinct row gives me the entire data set. What it means is that the entire row in the table, whether I've selected them or not, that entire row is unique in every single record in that data set. So I go to the property sheet, and when I'm setting it up in the design view, if I go to the property sheet and make sure I'm on query properties and not field properties, I look at unique records and set that to yes instead of the unique values. Unique values gives me uniqueness for just the fields I've selected. Unique records gives me uniqueness no matter what fields I've selected for the entire row in the database. A distinct difference between the two, pardon the pun. Group by and aggregating with the group by. So let's look at the group by statement. Now, we have our normal select from to build that basic query. So we're going to select from dim territory. We're going to select the market field. We're going to select the state field. But we're going to count the number of states in a particular market. So when we group it by, we're going to group by the market, and then we're going to count the states. And notice it automatically puts in our as statement here, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the video on how to deal with the as statement to make that customized. Okay, here's our list. It shows that we get 18 records when we do this. So we've got 18 different markets, and here's the list of the number of states within each market. If we want to look at this in the design grid, we click on the totals button up above. That's why sometimes this is called a totals query rather than an aggregation query. And down here in our design grid, we're going to group it by market. We're going to count the state. And if we just leave it like this, we get an as statement of count of state. Okay. So let's add the where clause to this and add a having clause to this. Where the market is Dallas. Okay. So we're going to look at the Dallas market. We're going to group it on the customer name in this case. And we're going to say, I only want customers that are spending less than $100 after I've looked at the Dallas and grouped them all and summed the amount of revenue that we get from them. We're going to go ahead and look at only the ones that are really, really small. And if we do that, we only get 2 records. And both of them probably bought one item that was the same price, $89.04. Now, the way we implement this in the design view, we then say the revenue here is going to be less than $1, less than 100. We still put it on the criteria line. Now, the criteria line builds our having clause and our where clause. Now, in a group by query, the where clause is executed by setting the where here and then telling where the where clause sets to Dallas only. So We generally don't show the where clause. In fact, we can't show the where clause. If we want mark it in the data set, we then put the field in again and show it instead of just leaving it as the where clause. So let's look at the order by clause then. The order by clause is established in the SQL right here. If we order it by the last name here on this last line, order it by DIM account manager's last name, and DIM account managers as the secondary order of first name. Now, the unique thing about the order by clause is simply that if I don't specify what order I'm going to put it in, ascending or descending, it assumes ascending. So I only need to put descending in it if I want descending, and I'll show you that here in a minute. If I want to look at the data here, I've got last name ascending, A, B, C, D, so forth. It's ascending, and as it ascends, then in the query design grid, I'm going to just set the sort criteria here in this sort line to ascending on last name and ascending on first name. And it'll set it up this way. Okay. Now, let's say I want to sort one of them descending. Here's what it looks like when you're setting it descending. You just put DESC after the item in the order by clause. So it's going to specify the field here, and then right after specifying the field, you put that you want that one sorted descending. Let's move on. The as clause. Now, I told you I'd come back to this one. Now, the as clause here automatically says to count of state, and this is what I told you previously. Well, that's if we leave it alone. We don't do anything. And when we look at the query data, it'll just say count of state up here. So here we see the three components of that. Now, if we actually want to change it, we can just then change it over here to as state space count. Now, notice the brackets again, because I've got a space in the middle of my name there. And because I have the name with a space in it, I have to put the brackets. As I do that, what you'll see here is down here, I put state count colon in front of the field name in the design grid. And then it shows up as state count when I see it in the results. Let's look at top and top percent for a moment. Now, top and top percent, you can set in both the query design grid and in the SQL. If you look at the SQL, it'll say select here, and in your normal select statement, it just has, let's say, top 25. So I'm only going to get the top 25 records. Now, this one's going to do a bunch of summing and grouping and ordering here. And when I look at the property sheet in the design grid, here is where I set. I'm on query properties again. Make sure that you click in the table area there where you see the tables in the white space outside of a table, and you get query properties. You set top values to 25. Okay. Now let's look at the percentage. Let's say I want the top 25% of all of those records. And I have it sorted, of course, and set up so that I know that I'm going to either get the top of the list or the bottom of the list, however I want it sorted. So I'm going to get the top 25% of the sum of line total by customer name. And if I want to do that, here when I select this down arrow here, I can select these percents down here. Now, I'm not limited. Notice the drop down has 5, 25, and 100, and 5%, 25%, and it has all. Normally it's set to all unless you want top values of any sort. Now note that I can edit, when I select 25, I can then edit it and make it 30 or 50 or 25 or whatever amount I want. I'm not limited to just the ones in the drop-down list. It's not a limit to list drop-down list, which is nice. So I can customize this without actually having to go back into the SQL to change it here. I can dynamically change it right on the property sheet. Okay, so we've run through several advanced query commands, shown you where they were in the query design, show you where they were in the SQL code, showed you what the data looks like. I hope this is helpful to you. If so, please hit that like button. Let's get this out to other people. And hope you subscribe so we can continue to grow the channel, and hope to see you again later. Thanks.